As India celebrates its diamond jubilee, it's an opportunity to look back at the great economic achievements that we have as a nation and also to look at the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. For decades, India was viewed as a highly populated, noisy, often chaotic democracy filled with impoverished people. After liberalization in 1991 and over the last 2 decades especially, a growing middle class has made India one of the most coveted marketplaces in the world. Indians' prowess in IT has fueled a healthy IT services sector, a digital revolution, and an envious startup economy. The large population is a demographic dividend today. But at the same time, we have challenges to overcome. While many Indians have been lifted above poverty, the inequality in incomes is still stark. Quality of life, healthcare, education are all works in progress. Employment, especially well-paying jobs, are still scarce relative to the large population. The other challenge while we have jobs, the employability of the talent pool is often an issue. So what should be the priority for India for the next 25 years? What do we hope India at 100 looks like? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Swaminathan Aiyar, Consulting Editor, ET Now, Dr. Sachchidanand Shukla, Chief Economist at Mahindra & Mahindra, and R. Gopalan, former Secretary, Ministry of Finance. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking to us on this special occasion. Swami, let me begin with your take. I've given a very broad, hold-all kind of introduction, and it is that kind of a subject, to be honest. So I'll have to begin by asking you what you think should be our priority list as far as the Indian economy is concerned for the next 25 years.
You want me to start?
Yes, please, sir.
The two things that you have to grasp, one is the quality of education. The other is the quality of the courts and justice. Education is the thing we have to be most ashamed of. There was this international school competition called PISA. India competed in it for the first time, became 73rd out of 74 countries, despite sending students from our 2 best states. And after that, we stopped competing. Pratham surveys show that people in 5th grade can't read a class 2 text. We are producing millions of unemployable graduates. And because they are unemployed, it's adding to the jobs crisis that is one of the biggest problems. The education and jobs are carried together. Now, we do have a thin veneer of excellent institutions. We have these Indian Institutes of Technology and Management. Some private business schools are coming up. Some of them are very good. They have been enough that we are able to produce 500,000 quality engineers a year. And that is a very major achievement. So we do have this thin veneer of excellence, but below, there is so much rot. So that is a huge thing we have to overcome. That is also relevant for the issue of inequality that you raised. If you do not have equality of opportunity, how are you going to have equality of outcome? I mean to say there's no equality of opportunity and then you say, hey, there are too many rich people, tax them. I mean, this is completely the wrong way to go about it. If you had quality schools in every single college, in every single village, if you had quality infrastructure and quality health, if you had all these essentials, then there would be a huge opportunity for millions of people lacking it. You would have 1,000 more millionaires. As I said, I believe that equality should be done not by reducing the number of millionaires, but you increase it 100-fold. So, the state of education is, I said, number 1. Number 2 is the state of our courts. It's well known that there are 4.5 million pending cases. It just does not come down. You find judges keep saying, justice delayed is justice denied. And having said that, they do nothing about the delay. So we have a huge job to improve the quality of justice and the speed of justice. Secondly, we were at one time proud that our judges are holding up the right to dissent, human rights. On various of these issues, the Indian judiciary was admired abroad. I am afraid in the last 10 years, that has gone down quite a lot. The quality of Indian democracy is seen as going down. The judiciary is seen as no longer able to protect dissent and human rights to the same extent. It has allowed the weaponization the misuse of laws on sedition, unlawful activities, money laundering, all of these are being misused in various ways. So as I said, judiciary needs to be really fixed and education really needs to be fixed. Those are the two big jobs for the next 25 years.
All right, R. Gopalan, of course, I'll come to you to the big jobs in the next 25 years, but I think we should take a minute to look at what we've achieved in the last 75 with all of these concerns. Now, you know, at independence, the question was that can such a diverse nation come together as one and grow as one? The levels of poverty, backwardness, all of that. What do you say would be the top 3 achievements for India economically and the top 3 challenges in the next 25 years?
This is to me,
yes,
Tamanna?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. The Swami has a point on issues relating to education levels. I am sure that's one area which really requires a lot of push. In fact, we have done not so much. I'll go to what we have not done so much. HR, as it's been mentioned, we have not done very much there. And in terms of economic freedom and ease of doing business, we have not done enough in the last few years and for quite some time. But we have ensured to a great extent on the social security side, we have done reasonably well, but we could have done a lot more, not comparing with advanced countries. I think on infrastructure, we should have done quite a lot, which we have not done. And I think there are 2 other things which I look at, which are very important for the future, are 2, 3 things. One of them is the female labor force participation rate,
Absolutely.
which is very, very low, which I think is something which we have to really cogitate as to why we are not able to do that. The second thing is that our demand is oriented towards only about 100 million top people, and there is the bottom 50% whose demand, we are not able to generate demand, increase demand, and ensure that we are able to make enough supplies for that. Why is that happening, and why we should not do something about it is something I'm really, looking at as a very serious subject. At the same time, there are a lot of things which are in the pipeline, which are happening, like the drinking water, a lot of work on drinking water and sanitation, on electricity to the doorstep. Those things have already, taken place in a really big way. On supply side, we are trying to fix problems through tax reductions, PLI, supply chain issues, Insolvency Act, GST, labor code. A lot of things have really, kind of happened. So I think it's a mix. The things have been done, not adequately. Things could have been done better, and a lot more things are to be done in the next 25 years.
What would you say, Mr. R. Gopalan, are the biggest achievements that we have seen in the last 75, the groundbreaking ones, which perhaps for a country of our size and diversity are astonishing?
Well, I would say that, getting industry off this thing block to do something to really, compete, get on agriculture, try to increase our production from what low levels we were there, try to see that we are, at least our food production is something which is able to take care of our requirements, and also trying to maybe we call it a little socialist in nature. The question of, right to education, right to food, and those kind of, and right to information, those kind of things which have been done are something which is really good initiatives. Okay, I agree that it has not done its full bit. It has not been able to deliver what it was fully intended to. But these are some things which are really, in my view, are reasonably good things on which we can really talk about.
Okay, Sachchidanand Shukla, let me start by asking you about the positives first. The big achievements for our nation in 75 years on, I don't know if we can really divide into socialist and economic because they're so intertwined. All policy at the end of the day is aimed at improving the lot of the common man and woman. What do you think are the key highlights of India's unique journey?
So Tamanna, you're absolutely right. I think if I were to look back at the last 75 years, I would say that India has really surprised everybody. And then you remember you started off this program by saying how when we got independence, there were a lot of people who had a negative view. So people like Selig Harrison, Winston Churchill, I mean, nobody really thought that India will remain together. And I think, therefore, the very first thing I want to highlight is political and social stability over the last 75 years. That, I think, is the hallmark. Second, I would say that macroeconomic stability it stands out for me very clearly. Let me give you the backdrop. As we speak, developed economies are seeing inflation rates which are probably symptomatic of the worst of the developing lot, right? I mean, inflation numbers 4x of their inflation targets. And then they've gone to the extremes of throwing money at the problem. If I look around at our neighborhood, I mean, look at how many countries are really distressed, right? And again, as we speak, there are 16 economies, emerging economies, whose sovereign yields are distressed. So I think macroeconomic stability is another feature that I would really highlight. Third, and you mentioned the social bit as well, let me highlight, when we got independence, the average life expectancy was about 32 odd years. And now an average Indian lives 70 years. And similarly, I mean, I can give you several of those stats, but I think very importantly, even a couple of years back, there were many people in the Western world who believed that Indians, and they had written it in black and white and then mentioned it on television screens, that Indians will be dying like flies in this when the virus hit home. And I think we can be reasonably proud of the fact that we've been able to doubly vaccinate 1 billion Indians. Nobody's died of hunger, even in the worst of the most stringent lockdowns. So I think when I look back, to me, political stability with the kind of diversity that we have, macroeconomic stability, and huge improvement in a lot of these social indicators and economic indicators. I mean, our economy from, say, 1991, we've grown 11x, right? If you look at foreign investment, it's gone up 800 times. Stock market cap, if you look at it, 80 times. So I can give you a number of statistics.
But Dr. Shukla, whenever we look at those statistics, everyone compares it to China. Also a large population. And in that same period of time is a giant economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with the kind of prowess that we've seen.
Absolutely. But Tamanna, I think, are we willing to pay the price that the average Chinese citizen pays? I mean, do you want to live in an autocracy where you don't really have a voice? There is certainly this democracy tax that we have paid, and it probably has cost us, some economists have pegged it at about 2% in terms of GDP growth. So I think, would you want to really exchange the stable growth and then the parameters that I talked about, political stability, being a democracy, with the kind of diversity and the growth numbers? I think I would be proud, and I would not want to exchange it with an authoritarian sort of a regime, which is, say, China. I wouldn't trade my 6-7% GDP growth with a 10% GDP growth.
Is that the right way to look at it, Swami? I want you to come in on this debate, because this is always the counter, that China has grown because of its autocratic regime, because they could push down their policy down people's throats. Is it as bipolar as that?
No, so absolutely not.
No, for Swami, that question for Swami, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, for me,
yeah.
Right. Okay. China's performance is the best that the world has ever seen anywhere. So it's like the gold medalist of the entire world. Yes. So say, why are you not better than the gold medalist? The answer is that standard is so exceptionally high. Now, as far as autocracy versus democracy is concerned, you will find that there are a very large number of autocracies right through Latin America, right through Africa, and they have been disasters. Merely having an autocracy, merely being able to push things through, does not mean you get good economic results. You can get terrible results. But the main thing about an autocracy is that, if you get things right, then you can push and get that thing very fast and you may do very well. And if you've got it wrong, you can push down the wrong road and then you go into total disaster. So I'd simply say that there are some cases where an autocracy has done better. China is an excellent mix actually of freeing and continuing with autocracy. On the economic side, it had a fantastic liberalization from being 100% government owned. Everything was owned by government. They then liberalized their economy and brought in economic freedom on a major scale. They globalized and took advantage of everything. So, it was an excellent mix of autocracy plus globalization plus economic freedom. In some ways, this was the same model that was followed by, if you like, Taiwan and Korea earlier. They were also military autocracies, but they went in for economic freedom and globalization. And that particular formula worked out as a success. So I will simply say at this point of time, what we have achieved in India, the last 2 years, we are fastest growing, fastest major economy in the world. So that is an excellent achievement. It is not the gold medal. We are very far away from China. But I said China's achievement is like a world-breaking record.
No, but the
if
question,
you take China out, we are done.
Swami, the question is not that we are not close to China because China is gold medalist. The question is, are we not close to China because we traded in democracy for that level of growth?
No, we got the policies wrong. You had a particular socialist level of development in which you were against foreign investment, against foreign trade, you were entirely against the private sector and focusing on the public sector. These were three wrong directions. Because of these three wrong directions, we grew very slowly until the first 30, 40 years of independence. I mean, it is a disgrace that after the British left, for 30 years beyond that, the population doubled, but the ratio of poverty remained the same, which means the absolute number of poor almost doubled because you had the wrong policies. Now, those policies began to get liberalized after 1980 and got a much bigger push after 1991. So I'm afraid we lost 30 years to begin with. And that is an important reason why we lagged behind. It's not just autocracy versus democracy. It is, were you going in the right direction? Unfortunately, we went in the wrong direction for 30 years before we woke up. This is one reason why we have lagged behind.
How do we catch up is the question, R. Gopalan. Forward looking, how do we catch up now in a world which has changed so much, where the borders have dissolved, the idea of economic prowess has also changed, has become US versus China. Where do you think India stands today?
Own diplomatic freedom, strategic autonomy, which is able to use in dealing with major powers. It is in a very difficult environment with China and other countries down and Pakistan on the other side. We have a problem to face on defense side. And also strategically, how do we align ourselves economically with respect to those other countries like Quad, IPEF, and those kind of things are going to be very, very meaningful. Well, we need to, first of all, we need to see how we are able to get our house in order. For instance, we should ensure that economic freedom, which ensures predictability, which does away with regulations which are definitely not good enough, on taxation laws which are, trying to be very, very stringent. And these kind of things have to be really, removed as early as possible. On trade side, unfortunately, we have gone reverse from virtually very small number. We are now about 4,000 tariff lines at 10-digit levels, where custom duties have increased in the last about few years. Now, our RCEP, we should have gone into with certain skillful negotiations. We did not do it. We are compensating through other, trade agreements at this point in time. But importantly, we need to see that our human resources development, especially on education and health, we take important decisions in not looking at insurance and those kind of things for health, but not look at the tertiary sector in a big way, but look at the primary sector where we are able to ensure that the health is developed. All the, water supply, sewerage, and those kind of things are really taken care of. There are real public goods with externalities, and these things have to be looked into in a really, meaningful way. Get the land market straight. We have got land market problems, which we are struggling to free them from the way they can be market determined. We have got to do financial sector reforms, including the public sector banks, where we need to see how we can ensure that they become very, very functional and really good. Skill development, as Swami mentioned, skill development is another area where we need to ensure that we are able to produce people who can use jobs. Last one, Tamanna, last one.
Yes, sir.
In agriculture, there is tremendous amount of technology infusion, and private sector role can be played in agriculture. That is an area asking to be, government to really lay out policies which will make the productivity even far better and release some lands for other particular.
I am absolutely out of time, but I will be really missing out if I don't ask you guys one very quick question, and I ask for a quick answer. It's a tough question. This whole freebie debate is on right now. Mr. Shukla, you first. In the going forward, as far as our economic policy goes, should we look at being a welfare state or cut down on these so-called freebies?
I think we need to get a better hang of the definitions itself, Tamanna. I think the way it is getting framed is slightly problematic. We need to first define what does this term free buy mean. I think there is a better way to frame it: merit goods versus non-merit goods, etc. And I think there clearly seems to be a problem if we as a nation continue to write more laws and legislating distribution of the pie without thinking of growing the pie. I think that is going to be problematic. And I think one area over the last 75 years or say post liberalization, the LPG reforms in 91, where we have consistently lagged is the fiscal area. I think fiscal consolidation, our inability to grow our revenues, tax to GDPs remained almost flat. I think that cannot happen. So you cannot think of redistributing the pie every single time
without growing the pie. I'm out of time, unfortunately, but that's the big message. Let's grow the pie as we look at a growing nation. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on this special today.